Aden, how's it going?
Very well. Good to be here.
I'm happy to be speaking with you. Now, can you share a little bit about your incredible character in the upcoming Law & Order Toronto series?
Sure. I was a little bit hesitant to take it on board because, I live on the other side of the world. And, it would mean being away from the family for a long time. And so I read the first episode and I thought, this isn't bad, For a procedural, it's got elements that I wouldn't expect in it. And it was very exciting, but also the character for the next 2 days just got into my head. And the way that he's very curious about so much in the world. And so that was my first step into really wanting to play Graf. Was the recognition of here's somebody who finds wonder in all sorts of aspects of life. And I got so excited that I came up with the idea that at the beginning of every episode, they should find him, in a queue to go skydiving or, at the aquarium or at the library researching flowers or whatever it might be, because he just exudes this want to learn, want to know, this curiosity that really excited me.
This is taking place in Toronto, of course, iconic series.
We tried to hide it.
I heard that you were born in Toronto.
I was born in Toronto.
And I heard that you said that it kind of felt like coming home to do this series.
Well, that's right. I remember talking with an old director years and years ago, and I said, where are you going to go when you grow older? And he said, I'm going to go back to Holland, where he was from. He said, I'm going to go back to Holland because it's where my bones feel alive. And in many ways, when I come to not only Toronto, but Canada itself, I don't know, there's something about it. I just feel that this is my home, my people, my base. As much as I spent so much of my, formative years in Australia, I really feel like this is still somehow home.
Is there any iconic landmarks that we're going to see throughout the season?
You're going to see everything. I had a friend of mine call me and he said, have you gone out and seen much of Toronto yet? And I said, we're there every day. Every time they move the trucks, we're in a different part of the city. We're in a new satellite suburb. We're moving around. I've seen more of Toronto than I bet a lot of Torontonians have in the past 5 years. We were moving and we went from City Hall and then we'd be down in, Little Portugal, and then we'd be over in God knows where. But, we seem to cover quite a lot of space.
Can you share a little bit about how this will be different in the sense that we're going to be showcasing the Canadian justice system versus, in, of course, the American version? There's differences there?
Well, there are. And, what's always interesting is when you're looking at any particular legal system is that there are still murders and there are still murderers being put away for it. And how they're put away and how the investigation is approached can be very, very different from country to country. And having had the opportunity to play a homicide cop in the United States, a homicide cop in Australia, and now a homicide cop here in Toronto, you do get a sense of how very different each of those legal systems are to each other. And what excites me about that is that if you pay attention to the detail, that's where you're going to find the difference in your dramas, and that to me was very exciting to learn more about the legal system here, but also the approach that the police take in their procedure of investigating a crime such as homicide.
As an actor, have you found that it can be difficult to kind of find the middle of entertainment while also seriousness when telling stories like this, or how do you kind of find, common ground there?
Well, this is a legacy franchise that explores, the procedure of investigating a crime and finding enough evidence to take that to the Crown or the prosecutor and say, look, the Attorney General, and say, look, we're gonna go after it. We think there's enough here to make a case. And I know that there are many cases where cops believe they've got their guy, but they just don't have that evidence. And so I think that's what excites people about the show. And sure, you're dealing with a subject like murder. And so where do you measure your fiction against the reality that somebody might be facing, being either a victim or associated in some way with the criminal, which can also be terribly harrowing. for somebody to have to live through. Imagine a mother learning her son or daughter is, accused of murder. So I think that you do have to be careful in that regard, and we're not here to exploit that. We're here to investigate it in a way that people find compelling, hopefully.
Totally. I watched the first episode. I loved it. I think that Canadians are going to love it. What would you want the true fans of the show to really feel from having this series and recognizing, such an iconic Canadian city, which is Toronto?
Well, I think first off, I do want them to recognize that it's law and order. That was, my brief to start with as well, and you work within the parameters of that to, and I pushed those as much as I could to make it, to bring new life into it, to freshen it up and so forth. But I also felt that the relationship that I have with Kathleen Monroe, who plays my partner, Detective Frankie Bateman, who I once called Detective Francis Bacon, in the middle of a scene and kept going. When people look at how that franchises come to the city, they're going to see their own backyards. They're going to see their own stories. They're going to recognize the forces that drive their own communities in a way that I hope reminds them that they are part of a very mature city with very mature problems that can be solved by very mature people like me.
Awesome. Well, I was just speaking to Karen, and she was telling me that on set there was a root beer debate. So can you share maybe your side of that?
Well, what happened was we were shooting one day, and a young man walked by me with a root beer I'd never heard of, and we were all feeling it was toward the end of the week, we were all feeling rather down. We'd lost our mojo, so to speak, and I remember thinking, well, we should put together a little competition to see which root beer is going to be the best. And we were high as children on, fairy floss. Or what do you call it here? That which you buy at a circus.
Oh, candy, cotton candy.
Cotton candy. So we were like that, running around with like cocaine in our brains.
That's awesome.
And it became a thing. Whenever we'd start to lose that mojo or feel it sapping, we'd pull out the root beer, but it did have a side effect that you could hear it in your stomach.
Got it.
And it would always come at the most inappropriate times where you're interviewing perhaps the mother of a victim, and a trumpet would play.
So if we get another season, maybe no root beer.
No, absolutely more root beer.
Okay, amazing. Well, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure speaking with you.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Enjoy the show.
Thank you.